Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Wave Extra on Friday, August 15th, coming to you live from the Wave Now studio here in our office. Jose Sosaya, happy to be here with you all as we're winding down on our evening. Looking forward to the weekend, a weekend that marks the first of two for the Kentucky State Fair. So if that's something that's on your mind, hope you enjoy. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the food, the rides, all the exhibits. If you're curious about the rules of where to go, the map, and all the things you might want to check out, a great resource. You can find those links on our website, wave3.com. As a reminder for parents and the kids too, there's that minor policy that goes from now Friday through Sunday. So just make sure, understand it's about going as a family with kids having that adult supervision. So that's on our minds. And of course, perhaps the big story of the day came in as a breaking update earlier this afternoon. And to give you an idea of the words Jefferson Police Department leaders have been using in their investigation to describe what they uncovered, words like horrific and traumatizing in their discovery of an apparent homicide inside of a home in Jeffersonville. And there are, of course, many questions. We still have some of those questions. Neighbors who were just feet away from what might have happened will have those same curiosities, but many people coming out of their homes to see the scene playing out, what was going on. And so, of course, we sent a crew out there. I want to show you, if I can, a little bit of that video, if we can play it. There we go. So we are, it's still a pretty fresh breaking story. There was also a SWAT standoff involved, but you see here this ambulance pulling away from a scene. We do know one man is in custody. This is what our Wave News reporter Logan Perrone had discovered on his trip up to Summerlin Drive where the homicide happened. And as Logan was relaying to us, they're still working. At last check, they had been late going into the afternoon checking out that scene. What they did want to stress for folks was describing it as an isolated incident, meaning that this wasn't, in their mind, some sort of random attack, and that there's no threat to the general community for those folks in that neighborhood, in that part of Jeffersonville. And and they did also confirm the person of interest, at least the person they took into custody, is related to the victim in some way, shape, or form. Now, what that relationship is, Jeffersonville police, again, not confirming that on the record just yet. But what they did say is the police found a man's body. So he was dead when they came to do a welfare check at around 10 this morning. There was a neighbor who talked, saying family members of that victim came to the house, understandably, emotionally just battered and distraught. Police describing, you could see there just the kind of equipment and vehicles they brought there. And so from that initial scene, they then drove over to Callaway Drive, where they found the suspect had some weapon on them. We learned that that other scene on Callaway Drive is the home of the man's mother, the man who was arrested. Police say they were able to call him on the phone during the standoff. He refused to come out initially. SWAT teams used what they call their munitions. We'll clarify to see if they meant some kind of smoke bombs to sort of force him out, draw him out, take him into custody. And police, by the way, in the press conference we had where Chief Kavanaugh was part of that, they were acknowledging that there were some comments being made online, at least in their description, there are rumors to this point, but with some gruesome details about how the victim was killed. They just would not confirm specifics. This is what the chief, I believe, or one of the detective captains had to say in that initial conference.
I want everyone, let's please keep in mind, we have a family that was affected as a result of this here. So let's think about the family amongst us in our community. We've seen a lot of tragedy occur this week here in southern Indiana between Kentucky and this is something here today. So these families that have been impacted, understand we want to relay information. People want to get on social media. I'm asking with all accounts, let's keep all the families here in this metro area that's been affected by violence this week, and let's keep them, and let's do what we can to be good stewards and neighbors to be supportive.
And you're seeing more of our perspective from our crew who was able to get there a little earlier in the day as that crime scene was still playing out. But you see just the gear that the officers were wearing there as part of the SWAT standoff that eventually did end. It was resolved when they took the suspect they were looking for into custody. So what we're going to play now is, as I mentioned to start a little bit this edition of tonight's Wave Extra was the fact that obviously neighbors nearby there on Summerlin Drive and even extending to Callaway Drive, just wanting to know what was going on because of the scale and the amount of police support that arrived to sort of answer to the question, to get a hold of the suspect, bring them into custody. We did, in sending our crew out there, talk to one neighbor, and what I'm going to do is play just the questions that our Wave News reporter Logan Perone was able to ask him, and sort of how he described any relationship he might have had with ultimately the victim who died, and what he remembers sort of about their interactions and what has startled him from this initial revelation of the alleged crime. So what we're going to do is play what our Logan Perone had been asking him this afternoon.
Picture of the neighborhood.
Quiet. A bunch of old retired people. Very, very quiet. Nothing ever happens here. Nothing. Not kids, nothing. Matter of fact, Eric, I think his kids used to live here, but it's been a long time.
Eric.
The guy that next door.
What did you know about Eric?
Not much. Quiet, kept to himself. Say hi to him. See him cutting his grass. That's about it. I used to see his son cut his grass years ago. My parents used to live here. I used to see his son cut the grass, and but I haven't seen his son for a while.
Gotcha. Kind of just give us your overall sense of, well, first of all, was there anyone else that lived there with him?
No, he lived by himself. His family would come over. I don't know how many kids he had, but I'd see a daughter. I know that.
Gotcha. Obviously you didn't.
And a son.
You didn't interact with him too much, but kind of what was he like from just your...
Quiet, friendly, very friendly guy. Quiet, kept himself, didn't say much, just hi, that's it.
And when you heard the news, kind of what was your reaction?
Shocked. Nothing like that happens here. Nothing. This is a quiet little neighborhood. Yeah, nothing happens here.
When you looked on your camera, you did see...
I saw a bunch of family crying and stuff in the driveway. Yeah, and I thought, what the heck is going on? And then, of course, I saw the crime scene truck, and I couldn't tell they were cop cars, but a bunch of cars.
And you weren't home at the time?
No, I was at work. I was on my lunch hour. I kept getting alerts from my camera in the driveway, and it was the police. There were people walking past, but it didn't catch any of the sun.
And when you say the family, you say it was it family you've seen here before? Or cars, maybe?
Yeah, I've seen the cars.
So that's how you kind of knew the family was here?
Yeah, well, by the reaction of them, I figured it was family. Yeah.
I don't know, how do you kind of just comprehend what went on here, just some of the things I'm sure you've seen online?
Shocked. I would never expect that, ever. He was a nice guy. Eric was a nice guy. I didn't even know his last name. All I'd do was say hi to him. He'd cut his grass once a week. I'd wave to him. I think everybody here had new roofs from the hail damage, and that's the longest I ever talked to him. I told him he needed to get his roof checked. Never talked to him that much.
And then just as far as this happening next door to you, because obviously, it impacts the family, it impacts the neighborhood, but this happened also right next door to you.
Yeah.
They said it's not random, so does that give you a little bit of comfort? I'm not, it's a terrible situation.
Yeah. Well, knowing that it's family, it was a family issue. It's really sad. Really a sad situation, but nothing scary that you're worried about. Just really sad.
Now, is there anything I didn't ask or anything you think comes to mind that we didn't talk about?
No, I know his son. I think his son used to live with him years ago. I think he did, because I'd seen him cut the grass, but never said hi to him, never spoke to him, never a word.
Gotcha.
And so that was part of that conversation with Wave News' Logan Perone. But you're going to hear more from what Logan was able to talk to other neighbors just with the initial shock of the crime scene, and perhaps, some details that, are being discussed but not fully corroborated right now, because surely I would imagine folks that are tuning in right now on the live stream who have been commenting or following the reporting, as well as everyone has this afternoon. There's just some details that are not public record quite just yet, but we are working to confirm as much as we can for you, let you know what police are able to connect as far as the dots are concerned. But again, just a reminder, you see it is the top story on our website, wave3.com. Logan will have his latest report coming up tonight on Wave News at 11. And this is, again, a great resource just to follow so you can get the latest information that we're able to publish and share in the most timely fashion as you all, check in on your phones and your app and just see what is the latest information we all can find as well. All right, moving on to other stories. Big happening around the Louisville Metro and across our different neighborhoods. If you had been wondering before about perhaps ways that the Metro might be building up on some of that revenue. So to that point, it is about to get more expensive to go to court in Louisville, and we're talking about court fees. They can already be sometimes more than $100 as part of just the sheer process to have to go through that. But that seems to now be going up as part of a plan. Wave News reporter David Mattingly spent his time working on this update today, finding that the money that's coming in through this increase would fix some overdue maintenance issues as far as the courts themselves.
Afternoon, inside the dimly lit Hall of Justice, water falls from 3 stories up and puddles in a public waiting area. Nearby, an escalator sits motionless, inoperable, we're told, for months. A sarcastic face drawn on a sign warning people to take the stairs is just one indication of how maintenance problems in the city's justice buildings have become a running joke.
It goes not only from environmental concerns, but the movement of individuals, access to courts.
Jefferson Circuit Court Clerk David Nicholson points to issues in the Hall of Justice, the neighboring Judicial Center, and the old jail building as a $40 million problem. Information given to Louisville Metro Council reveals long-standing issues. Poor lighting to non-functioning escalators in the Hall of Justice. Escalators have only worked intermittently over the past decade. And elevators need modernizing to avoid outages, life, safety issues, and people being trapped inside.
Because we've had this meeting each and every month for over a year and a half. Now we are meeting every 6 weeks instead of every 4 weeks.
Just to talk about maintenance problems.
Just to talk about facility maintenance problems.
The common problem is the cost. $5 million just for elevators and escalators, $3.2 million for a new roof. As a first step in coming up with the money, Louisville Metro Council approved hikes in court fees to be paid by the people with cases before the circuit and district courts. It passed with some reservations from District 8 Councilman Ben Reno Weber.
We do need to make these investments. I just want to be sure that we're not financing it on the backs of the people who can least afford it.
Fee hikes are expected to raise only $1.2 to $1.8 million a year. Those hikes will make it more expensive to sue someone or be convicted of a crime. If you're filing a civil case, it will cost you $25 more. And as if traffic tickets didn't already cost a lot, fees associated with those violations will also be going up $10 to a total of $144. David Mattingly, Wave News.
Moving on to other big stories for you this evening, and perhaps the thread of the conversation surrounding public safety when it comes to crimes that police and prosecutors say are involving young offenders, likely teenage offenders, and the victims. You've seen just the most stark examples of the 2 young moms who were each gunned down in their own separate intersections or the separate parts of town across Louisville. Well, we've now seen sort of a response from Commonwealth's attorney's office, in particular Attorney Jarena Weathers, saying that she wants to see parents held responsible if their kid commits a crime, and now she's asking state lawmakers for help. So this was part of the reporting that our Wave News reporter Alina Noakes spent her time today learning that future legislation, it's still kind of largely undefined. And as we set that up, I'm going to play some video for you and share what Alina's discovered. So the legal basis that Attorney Weathers referenced in a press conference was the parental prosecution of, if you remember the story of a Michigan school shooter and his parents last year. Both the parents were convicted of involuntary manslaughter, accused of failing to secure the gun they had at home and doing nothing to try to manage, address, or help their son with his mental health concerns. So that is the connecting point, as you see Alina talking right there. But the parents' conviction in Michigan was not the result of any law in the state that specifically holds parents responsible for the actions of a child. In most laws, it exists, or that exist on the books, including in Kentucky, parental repercussions are often civil matters. They deal with a child destroying property or committing assault. And these would be very specific laws legislators would have to take then into account if they wanted to draft something. So today, Alina spoke to State Representative Jared Bauman, among a few other lawmakers today, trying to gauge their respective positions on what potential legislation they would like to draft and possible penalties. And I believe this is the response from State Representative Bauman here.
We're going to learn from the experts and stakeholders at the table what will be the most effective measure to hold parents accountable if we do go down that path. Is it a civil penalty? Is it a criminal penalty? Is it a combination of both? We'll learn all that as we go through the legislative process and put forward the most effective policy proposal for Kentucky in January of 2026.
Now, for reference, Representative Bauman did write Kentucky's most recent criminal justice legislation back in 2024. That included measures about escalating penalties and parole for certain felony offenses as part of our research here. So bring you back here inside the studio. Wave News did reach out to several other lawmakers who represent Jefferson County to talk about their thoughts on a possible bill, any kind of legislation on that. Bauman and Representative Rachel Roarks were the only ones who at least returned our request for comment to discuss the matters. Both say they wanted to see something done. It's just not clear what it would look like at this point. And perhaps in a plea that is sort of echoing what LMPD Chief Humphrey has stated ever since that first attack. And we'd say that goes beyond just this week, but the first of the two shootings that happened at the bus stop on 10th and West Chestnut. But obviously now, with the context of the deadly shooting of the mother there with her young daughter, and then later in the same day happening at 41st and Broadway with another young mother. We just wanted to play a bit of a snippet in the latest LMPD press conference from today, and this is Lieutenant Les Skaggs talking about what the police's hope is as far as that bridge of trust for people to come to them and for police to say, we need your help in finding that justice for the two victims and beyond that. So we just want to play a little bit of what Lieutenant Skaggs said earlier this afternoon.
We know that through surveillance video, there were eyewitnesses to both of these homicides. We need those eyewitnesses to be able to talk to us, to tell us firsthand what they witnessed at those two incidents. Our community can't stand for this. We need these eyewitnesses to come forward so we can get these killers off the street. Police are often the face of combating violent crime. And while that is true, there are at least 4 other partners that we need to combat violent crime: the judicial, the legislative, and the community. At a minimum, those 4 partners need to come together and say, we've had enough and we're going to fix the violent crime problem in our city, each with their own perspective and respective parts that they play in combating that problem. All of these partners, including the community, judicial, and legislative, have joined with LMPD in saying we are ready to change and make this problem go away. Eyewitnesses are crucial in a homicide investigation. Outside of physical evidence, we have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone committed this act. If there's a lack of physical evidence, it makes eyewitness testimony crucial in identifying and prosecuting these people and getting them off the street in a court of law and putting them in prison. We can't take the word on the street or hearsay as credible eyewitness information. While it is helpful and it points us in the right direction, ultimately we need a first-hand witness to come forward and say that they witnessed what they saw and tell us that and testify in a court of law so that person can be punished for what they did. We understand that the public is sometimes reluctant to talk to the police out of fear of reprisal. And while I say that's not accurate, I would be remiss if I said it is a factor. But what we need is for the community to start standing up to these people and saying enough is enough. We are going to come forward and we are going to tell the police what you did and that we saw you do it. These families deserve answers. And if it were your family member who was killed and you knew that the people in the community knew who did it, wouldn't you want them to come forward? So again, if you were a victim or your family was a victim of a homicide and people knew, you would want them to come forward. And we're asking you to do the same thing. If you saw these acts take place, to tell us what you saw.
And so again, you hear that part of today's press conference from Lieutenant Les Skaggs with LMPD, just talking about how, based on the clues and the surveillance that they've found, that there are eyewitnesses they're hoping to talk to try and bring not just the justice, closure, but to answer that question of who is responsible for what happened in these two instances of violence. So in the same thread of what the resources are to try and prevent any more of this from happening, at least, you know, it's a representative week that touches on the kind of violence that can, you know, completely harm families irreparably. But discussing what Metro resources are beyond just LMPD. Wave News anchor Rob Wells, a new member of the team, but Rob sat down recently for a longer conversation with the newly appointed head of the Office of Violence Prevention. So coming up after the break, I'm going to play the first part of their conversation about with the new director stepping in, what he's hoping to focus on. And so just wanted to play that conversation as part one and part two, but played out for you to read and hear what they have to say. So we're going to bring that after the break right here on Wave Extras. So hope you stay with us.
I feel like there's problems and common issues going on in all cities. What does that mean to you when you hear that title and where you're going to go 6 months from now or a year from now?
Sure. Actually, I grew up in Pasco County, just a little bit north of you. So I spent a long time there, been to Sarasota many times. So the Office of Violence Prevention, it took the work that the Office for Safety and expanded the scope slightly, but really a lot of what I've been asked to do is take the pilot programs and the different things that we've found that work the best and put all of our resources into those. So, you know, with the American Rescue Plan funding, we had a lot of latitude to start new pilots, to fund a lot of community organizations over the years. Without having it in front of me, we've funded I believe, 300 different grants and contracts since 2022, over almost $30 million worth. Now that those that ARP period is coming to an end, my office in particular has found things like the community violence intervention sites that we've been running have seen a great amount of success across the city, and the 4 sites that we have, and then Metro Council has decided in this year's budget to fund a 5th, and this will be the first general funded CVI site, which we are setting up currently. And then also our anti-violence coalitions. Those are neighborhood-driven groups identifying issues, and then we are helping them identify solutions, funding those, and coordinating those. And that goes along with some of our other longstanding programs like our TRC, Trauma Resilient Communities, which is really helping individuals, communities, and neighborhoods heal after a violent act has occurred, and also trying to provide resilience and intervention and prevention before those things occur. We also have our community and youth engagement services that's putting out programming for youth, and actually the ABCs are part of that division as well. So really trying to coordinate youth, coordinate communities into both prevention and intervention efforts to reduce violence.
If I read correctly, the organization initially started in its early stages in 2013 in the city of Louisville. What is the biggest pivot since then? We can't even compare not only Louisville, but any other city to what it was 12 years ago, although it doesn't feel like it was that much long ago. What are we facing now that we weren't in 2013? What's your biggest barrier?
Well, and actually this is the city has allowed us to have a pretty robust research team now led by Dr. Ivan Benitez. And part of what he is doing with us, not only data analysis, but also trying to look back and do causal research and find out what's going on. Because in 2014 and 15, that was the first time that the homicide rate in the city doubled. We don't know why. So we're actually looking back at data from those times and trying to determine what happened then. And then again, of course, with the height of violence in the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, we saw another precipitous rise. Now, not only is violence going down across the country, it is reducing in our city. We are seeing it reduce at a faster rate here in the city, and even faster in the sites where we have our programming like CVI and AVCs. But we are trying to find out what caused those initial things so we can prevent that in the future. So even though we're seeing a lot of strides, which I have those figures in front of me, I think in our CVI sites, we're seeing a 53% decline in homicides year to date compared to last year. There's always prevention work to do. We never want to get back to that point. So we want to make sure that we're building a structure of nonviolence and violence reduction that we can rely on in the future.
And not only here, but everywhere, but I feel especially Louisville, 2020 was the game changer. We had the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville, which gained global attention, and we had the pandemic. Did that change the kind of the trajectory of this city, of how communities interact forever, do you believe? Have we ever gotten over that time 5 years ago?
The pandemic was definitely the affecting change in the cases which we're seeing in every city and across the world when it comes to violent crime, the rise in homicides and things like that. I think that there was a change that the pandemic precipitated. We're not really sure. We're still finding that out. I mean, it's only 5 years, and while we're trying to look back and figure out, was it a loss of cohesion and, community places where people can gather and mix and, talk to their neighbors and, discuss their problems with each other? Is that what's missing? We're trying to look at a lot of different things. So the way that we do that is, while we identify programs that are around, so like last year, and another thing we're trying to fund this year is a barbershop program, not only providing, free haircuts for youth and young men, but also providing a space where people can talk and then come back into that community space that may have been affected by the pandemic. If we find that that has a very positive effect, maybe that's something that we can continue to support that will, and possibly was a cause looking back. We never know for sure.
And the Breonna Taylor case, how did that forever change us, divide us, or bring us together, do you think, as a community?
I don't think that affected the gun violence rate.
What about the actual thing about, connecting officers and resources with the neighborhoods in which they serve. Do you think that's important? I mean, I see cops on bikes and cops walking through neighborhoods. Is that a big part of it too? Not only what you're doing, but kind of getting communities acclimated to the people, the men and women in blue that keep them safe. Is that kind of a big initiative as well moving forward?
Well, our department is specifically non-law enforcement. We are focused on the prevention and intervention parts of that. And actually, there is even in the Safe Louisville plan, there's some wording in there where it's, distinct, different, and there's a gap between our services. We always want to increase community trust in government. That's a big part of our mission as well. I think that LMPD is doing that on their own terms. And, especially with the Community Safety Committee that was just convened, LMPD will be reporting to them in terms of the consent decree. My office will be reporting to them as well, just in terms of keeping them updated with our work, things like that. So I think that while we're in the business of reducing violence, hopefully down to zero, that is, of course, we're always approaching perfection. I think LMPD is dealing with that as they can.
Are other cities following our lead in this? Are we the only community metro area in the state of Kentucky that has this right now? Do Lexington, does Bowling Green have something? Would I find this in Hazard?
So I'm not sure about Hazard. We have met and building a relationship with our counterparts in Lexington, which of course they just revealed their new strategic plan. Divine Karama is the director, my counterpart in Lexington, of course we have talked about advocating on a statewide level for this. This is not a competition. Our goal is for the people of Kentucky to be as safe as possible, to live their lives without fear in those cases. So no, we're not the only place in Kentucky. And of course, there's nationwide systems of offices just like ours. I do think that our office is on the leading edge of many of the things that we're doing, especially with the CVI sites, especially with the anti-violence coalitions. Those are things where we are kind of treading new water in a lot of cases. And that's another thing that I appreciate Dr. Benitez for is he's there to help catalog this success. And then we can report that out and try and help other people in other cities from what we're seeing is the best way to reduce violence.
So that was part one of our Wave News anchor Rob Wells conversation with the new director of the Office of Violence Prevention in Louisville Metro, James Tatum. A reminder, as we will keep refreshing, of course, the homepage. Here you're seeing, by the way, a refresher on this story. If you joined us earlier in the hour here on Wave Extra for Arlena Noakes, check in with state lawmakers about potentially looking for penalties for parents of youth or teen offenders to try to curb that kind of crime. So you see how quickly we do update that resource, and you could access that through your Wave Now app and all the different features and apps and channels to connect with Wave News. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and after that, we're going to play the rest of this conversation our Rob Wells had with James Tatum. So stick around. We'll be right back.
And obviously you can't do this alone. So talk to me about your staff. Do you have volunteers? Do you have like a part-time coordinator organization that works with you? How are you going to do this? Because the metro is growing, places are expanding, and we want to make this all inclusive. So how are you doing this as far as an office is concerned or a new division?
Absolutely. Well, so I think the biggest difference between now and when the office started, like you were talking about, is now we have approximately 55 employees. Now that includes full-time Metro employees, that includes contractors. We do have a few volunteers that help, especially at our community sanctuary project activations, who come out and they, when there's been a violent incident in a community or when there's a place that has seen a lot of violence, we try to do an activation there and say, you know, we have food, we have free mental health resources, we have faith resources if people are interested, and we try and show that those public spaces really belong to that community. But really, out of all of our, you know, every single employee here, I actually just sent an email to everyone yesterday because back in 2023 with the bank shooting and then the mass shooting that also occurred at the Chickasaw Park only 6 days later, our office deployed for both of those. And I personally wanted to thank, you know, we probably still have 90% of the staff, actually probably more since that time. So I reached out and I just told everybody, hey, I really appreciate that. You know, that's still something that inspires me even from 2 years ago. And that's something that, you know, I can really rely on them in a crisis. And I think that that's always happening. You know, that's always something where we're practicing that professionalism. We're always trying to improve our processes. We're always trying to increase trust in government services and also trying to help people on an individual level. You know, that personal mentoring is a huge part of many of our services. So there's one-on-one contact with many, many people and our employees.
And finally, how will you be like boots on the ground? Are you going to be, what is your very first actual activity, meeting? What will you be doing to kind of tackle this head on? Will you be out meeting with folks? What do you want to see as a vision for your actual first plan of action? What do you want to tackle first? And how does the community get involved in helping you in that endeavor?
So I think there are a lot of things, and actually I think it's even more than one person can handle. Along with my appointment as director, Ashley Webb was appointed as deputy director, and splitting those responsibilities, she is expected to be out of the office at least 80% of her time, out in community spaces, meeting with people, being in public spaces, listening to what the community is saying, bringing that information back so we can incorporate that in our work. I am also out there. We're working directly with many city agencies. We're working with nonprofits, community organizations, and individuals, really trying to listen as much as possible. You know, we're trying to be everywhere all at once, and we're going to continue trying to do that as well, because I know that people want to be heard, and we want to make sure that we're incorporating the needs of the community, the ideas of the community, and being there where we can support. A huge thing that I really want to shout out is we have what's called the Violence Reduction Landscape. Now, that's a series of meetings where we are trying to provide a space that is free, that is open, and that any individual, community organization, nonprofit, government agency, anybody who wants to, can come in with these meetings and they can discuss what's going on in the city, what they're doing, their data, find ways to work together. We're also providing technical assistance in those cases. If you have any data that you'd like to present, if there's anything that you want to host on a website, we can help you figure that out. We can help you with grant writing. We can help you with letters of support. You know, we have worked with the majority of community organizations in town. So there's always an existing relationship. We could be there. But as that ARP funding is ending, we want to make sure that we're still there in a capacity building way. We don't always have to be the funder and have that grantor-grantee relationship. We want to be a supporter.
And finally, if I want to find out more information, do you have a website or a phone number I can call if the community just wants to find out, hey, they're going to be in my neighborhood, or here's how I can make a difference? How would they communicate that to your office?
Yes, we do have a main phone number and a website that you can visit with contact information there. That name recently did change, so I will get that for you if you wouldn't mind hosting it afterwards. But yes, we absolutely have both.
And then final question, what about with your findings? You can't do it alone. Will you ever get to a point where you work with LMPD and say, we need your help in this community, or this is really the area of need? I know you're independent, but yet obviously the first responders kind of go hand in hand with crime prevention. Where's the cutoff where you finally say, this is bigger than what our 55 staff members can handle?
Well, there's very specialized jobs when it come into it. So a lot of the one-on-one mentoring that we do is, with our OVP community outreach coordinators. And so, they have a caseload with clients where they are meeting with them. Most of them are youths, and the vast majority of our clients are 25 or younger. But that's meeting with them, helping them stabilize what they're going through, and then attaining, various things like education, if they need a GED, or helping them get a job or ID and things like that. So we have a specialized job when it comes into these things. We have our specialties. The police have theirs as well. So these two things are operating where they are separate, but this is all trying to reduce violence in many different ways.
And so I want to appreciate our Wave News anchor Rob Wells' conversation in part 1 and part 2 there with the new director of the Office of Violence Prevention in Metro, that is James Tatum. So obviously a conversation that is not a closed loop. We'll see how that plays out as far as the stories and the impact this is going to have for folks and families out there in the community. We're stretching our view to across different parts of the Commonwealth for more stories tonight. Appreciate you joining us, by the way, if you're just popping in on the different social media channels we have, Facebook, X, Twitch, and YouTube, or on the Wave Now app. Always appreciate your time as we're winding down on this Friday, heading closer to the weekend. But in this matter, it is sort of the latest courtroom update in the story of a Eastern Kentucky sheriff who prosecutors have accused shot a judge. Are you familiar with the story of the arrest of Mickey Steins and the latest updates on that? And so want to then toss to our reporter Phil Pendleton for this update from court.
Sean Mickey Steins walked into the same courtroom he likely worked in many times before, the same courthouse where he's accused of gunning down a judge. He's currently ordered to stay in jail under no bond, but it's his work as a lawman that his attorneys say is part of the reason he should receive a bond.
This is a man with a great respect for the law, and he's built his life around upholding the law and serving his community.
Prosecutors say case law shows why certain suspects should be kept in jail.
The Supreme Court said if you are charged with a capital offense, you are not entitled to bail. And they overturned a circuit judge and sent it back to no bail.
Steins' attorney is asking for a bond of about $50,000 cash or property. They're also asking for the indictment to be thrown out, grand jury to rehear the case, citing problems in transcripts, lack of recordings, and questions dealing with Steins' sanity.
We've been confident in Mr. Steins' case from the outset, and we are even more confident today than we were from the outset, for sure.
Video evidence already submitted shows Steins clearly shooting Judge Mullins, but the circumstances surrounding the violence are still up for debate.
Mr. Steins is resilient. The people of Eastern Kentucky, we are resilient, and he's going to get through this, and we're going to get through this.
The judge said that he would give both sides until September 2nd to issue any supplemental items along with the motions that were filed. He said he would make an expedited ruling at that point. After that, it's likely that he could possibly set the next court date, maybe even a trial date.
And our thanks to reporter Phil Pendleton for that update. And as I'm looking at the queue here for the stories I want to share with you tonight, it's good to see sometimes technology does reward your expectations in it. So this has to do with a story from our sister stations or our partners out in Lexington, because there's research happening at the University of Kentucky over an item perhaps some of us tuning in tonight hold quite dear, especially relating them to Saturday morning cartoons, or maybe they're your go-to breakfast, whether you're young or young at heart. It has to do with ready-to-eat cereals, and in particular, focused research on these kind of cereals for kids and their health impact on their diet and overall health. So reporter Drew Ammon has this update for you tonight.
At UK, results from a study reveal that many ready-to-eat kids' cereals are getting less healthy over time. Dr. Shuli Jha from the Martin Gatton College of Agriculture, Food and Environment led the study with this research framework in mind. A starting point for the study addressed concern about the choice of convenience over nutrition.
Well, I will apologize there, folks. It seems I could not hear the audio play for the doctor that Drummond was trying to interview in that particular moment. It is a fascinating story. Hopefully, I can just read you perhaps sort of the information there. I do have the information pulled up. So the doctor, his name is Shuli Zhao, was looking at the cereals that are marketed specifically for kids ages 5 to 12. And at least results from the study that he was a part of reveal many what are called ready-to-eat kids' cereals are getting less healthy over time. It's a big topic, Dr. Zhao says, for their health intake. He's part of the Martin Gatton College of Agriculture, Food, and Environment. It's under the umbrella of connections between what's going on in the general market, individual choices, and policy motivating people's individual choices, is how the doctor put it. He says the starting point addressed concerns about the choice of convenience over nutrition. A lot of times, at least the doctor says, people don't have the time to really compare different products and look at the back of the package. So discussing grams of sugar, probably something you parents at home are trying to manage as best as you can on a busy day, on a budget. So that's something we definitely understand. So we'll see if perhaps now on Wave News at 11, this is something we'll try and get you at least more of the doctor's perspective if you join us tonight on Wave News at 11. I'm going to take a quick break to set up the last round of stories I want to share with you tonight on Wave Extra, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, folks, welcome back to this last part of tonight's edition of Wave Extra here in the Wave Now studio. Happy to have you here with us, Jose Sosaya, connecting with you on the Wave Now app and all the different social media channels. So now looking at some perspective, the conversation over not just supply of housing, but affordable housing is something that's being discussed by Indiana lawmakers. So here we're crossing on the other side of the Ohio River, but for folks, you know, across the different counties we have, not just talking obviously at Jeff, Clarksville, and extending further out. So today they discussed housing shortages in particular at a breakfast for lawmakers, and reporter John Kim has the latest on that front. We'll play that right now.
The average cost of building a new house in Indiana is almost $500,000. That's what State Senator Linda Rogers says. Rogers attended today's Breakfast with Our Legislators event, hosted by the Home Builders Association of St. Joseph Valley.
It takes a lot of Hoosiers out of the market. Only 17% of Hoosiers then can afford this new home.
According to the U.S. Census Bureau, housing units in northern Indiana have grown 0.6% every year in average from 2021 to 2024, which is lower than the national average of 1.04%. Bob Penrose, the executive officer at the Home Builders Association of St. Joseph Valley, says the high costs of building new houses have been a burden for them since the pandemic. But he says there's another factor that makes it worse.
Before you even start to build a home, 25% or more of the cost of a home is permitting and regulatory costs.
Certainly, there are regulations that are important for health and safety, but when it comes to things that are just aesthetics or design standards, certainly those need to be really looked at.
Senator Rogers is hoping Indiana House Bill 1005, which got passed in this May, could alleviate the cost burdens of real estate developers. As an amendment to the original bill that was passed in 2023, Bill 1005 adds an additional $25 million to housing loans so that local governments can provide basic infrastructure like water, sewer, gas, and electric grids before the developer starts digging the ground.
We've worked to cut the red tape. We have a new neighborhood homes initiative that works to reduce the cost of connecting to our utilities.
And our thanks to reporter John Kim for that update from that conversation that Indiana lawmakers had. So pay attention. What I'm hoping to show you folks, what it's going to be is some audio from leadership at a sporting goods store in Louisville. Maybe you're familiar with KY Gun Co. They had shared it earlier this week, and you're going to just be stunned to see the amount of water that comes gushing in. The storm punched pretty much a hole in their roof, and as I set it up, this is going to be video from KY Gun Co. by Anchorage. The storms had been rolling through this part of town Tuesday when they caused the roof to buckle, break, sending this ton of water through the business. The owner says they're working to reopen, but that could take 2 or 3 months. We're going to play that video for you right here.
The facility sustained some damage in a storm that resulted in a partial roof collapse, as you can see over my shoulder. This only affects the Louisville retail location. Our Bardstown retail locations and our online orders will continue to operate as normally. We anticipate the construction process taking several weeks to perhaps a couple months. During the cleanup and rebuilding process, our staff is busting their butts, along with Music Construction, who has been phenomenal to help us get it back to where we need to be. While this is a painful process for us, we are thankful that this did not happen during business hours. None of our employees were injured, none of our customers were injured. We anticipate the construction process probably taking the next 1 to 2 months, but we are coming back and we will reopen. If you're one of the customers that has been affected by this, know that all your layaways and all your other orders and all your other firearms have been moved to the Bardstown facility. It is only 45 minutes south of Louisville. During this time, our staff and myself, we would appreciate your continued patronage. You can do it online at kygunco.com or at Bardstown, Kentucky at 401 Glenwood Drive.
So again, there you heard from the owner that for any customers who are hoping to go physically to grab any items they might have had or just to go shop, that they do have their Bardstown location open. And again, just you see a bit of the replay of just the swell of water that essentially kind of swept away a lot of the supplies there. You can see sort of the vent just collapsing there, the rush of water just basically knocking out all those shelves and supplies they had inside the KY Gun Co. Louisville location. And one more story before we wrap things up tonight. For the first time ever, Fern Creek's Fire Protection District is graduating their own class of fire recruits. Training is finished, so the real work is going to begin. Our cameras were there as the new fire and EMS graduates were being revealed, confirmed, and announced. 7 months of intense training, and they talked to Wave News anchor Brian Schlonsky.
Congratulations.
These 12 people make up the Fern Creek Fire Protection District's first ever class of fire recruits.
We knew it'd be hard, but no one could truly prepare us for the intensity, the challenges, or the growth we would face.
For 7 months, the fire department says they went through intense physical training, academic instruction, and emergency simulations to get them ready for real emergencies.
We came in as strangers, but we leave as family, forged by sweat, sacrifice, and shared purpose.
The fire department says the community needs their own team like this as the population grows.
Order. Order.
Sworn in and pinned by proud family members. Also graduating today, a class of EMS recruits.
Discharge the duties of the Office of Emergency Medical Technician.
vital to providing modern medicine and service to people during emergencies.
It has been a privilege to attend this academy, a blessing to become part of the Fern Creek family, and an honor to serve our community.
Recruits know more as others run from danger, ready to head straight towards it.
All right, thanks to our Brian Schlonsky for that little vignette. Great to see more people signing up there to help protect the Fern Creek community right there. Again, your usual reminder that a great resource for the latest information is right there on our homepage, wave3.com. You can sign up for push alerts by downloading, if you haven't already done so, the Wave News app. There's the Wave Weather app, or the Wave Weather Now app, of course, with all the latest information that you can get from our storm tracking team on that front. And as a reminder, as we're wrapping up tonight, there's more news and more breaking updates that we could share with you. If make sure to join us on Wave News at 11. Myself, the storm tracking team, our reporting team of Logan Perone and Julie Richardson there to break down the day's biggest stories as well. Appreciate your time, folks, as we're winding down on this Friday. Hope everyone enjoys their weekend and stay safe. I'm Jose Sosaya. I'm here in the Wave Now studio. Have a good night.